Good morning, folks. Welcome to day 13 of the build. We're going to continue working on this large piece. With that, we're going to start adding more decorations to it. Generally, some of them will have a purpose, which we will discover later. All right, with that, we start with our bolt and a very detailed little gear. In we go. 2 washers. So we'll go through this hole. Ooh, whoa. All right, that was unexpected. However, oh, I see. Look at that. The 2 flat washers, in fact, make a perfect fit. Astonishing. And we have a little rubber grommet, which will certainly help seat this in there. There we go. We have this chrome piece, gold piece in there. That's once we start. Once we start squashing this thing down, that rubber will hold everything together. Now, here's what I have to find a lock washer. It's right here. E30, yep. And add. See, as you can see, these tiny little bags sometimes are a challenge to get open. And even with that, you sometimes end up with one more than you actually need. So, set that. Put the lock washer on. We'll put the other flat washer. How much? 2 7 mils spacers. There we go. And a very, very small knurled nut. And as we tighten this, sort of make sure everything is kind of centered. Get a very small screwdriver. Doesn't matter. And then we're just going to tighten this up a bit so that we can get everything squashed together. And this appears to be what you're asking for in the instructions. So I'm just going to put you on pause for a minute. I'll go gather up some more parts, and away we go. Stand by. Okay, and we're back. So we now have this armature ready to install on this shaft. I had to do a tiny bit of relocating for this shaft. It wasn't quite aligned correctly, but step number 1. Okay, put this into there. So that's basically what we want to do. We need to actuate standby. And we're back. The next step is to actually mount armature to this large shaft. So the first step is to orient That's going to be a steam line into the steam reservoir. Balance that for a moment. Take our large nut. Use a roller bearing and a bushing. Here's a bushing. Okay, in there. And then we have this. Run this through the shaft like so. Okay. And then we put another pushing in like so. All right, now we're starting to cook. And then flat washer. Flat washers, thank you. Appears to be a rocket launch code. I can go in there. I'm going to be using okay. My bad. So, stepping ahead of ourselves. So we have the flat washer, then we're going to take the lock nut, and the lock nut is going to fit perfectly, presumably, in that space, which it does. Very nice, thank you. And this is where even 3 hands, not necessarily enough. And then this fellow goes on, and this will be our spacer. We'll orient everything correctly. There we go. There we go. At that point, we put our other wheel bearing on. Right. All right. And we put our other spacer on. And then we put our acorn nut on. Okay, there we go. And then, hopefully we tighten everything up. In such a way that it sort of makes sense. Because you can only imagine this thing's going to go up and down. And it's a steam pump. Let's see, make sure this thing still works. You need to suspect that this and this somehow end up being connected. However, that will be this step complete. So we'll catch you on the flip flop. All right, so now we will attempt to install arm that sort of actuates this thing. Although it seems quite far away, so I'm not entirely sure how this is going to work. However, let's give it a shot. So it starts off with, okay, that actually might work. Let's see what's going on. So this goes through there. This is going to go through here. So, wait a second. 120, this is 120. Oh, I see. It's going to go like so. Aha. I see. That way. And somehow this is going to go here. So. Where's G66? Where is G66? I'll be right back, folks. All right, folks, we're back. We're going to now be attaching the arm picture to this guy that goes up and down. So let's give that a shot. So we start So we start with this guy doing that. He's going to come through here. This guy's going to attach like so. Another one of these guys. There we go. At this point, this has to be in through there. Okay, look at that. We're going to put our large grommet, and then hit our that being said, this guy has to get through the on. And then our M8 goes on, which is an 8mm nut. And I'm assuming you can't make it too tight because of the grommets, but we'll find out. Well, now's the test, folks. Will it or will it not go up and down? Ho, ho, ho. Up and down it goes. Well, my friends, I think we're going to call that done. And see you on the next video. Here comes the big hand.